Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of Brixton Key, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Has had a very long and varied and interesting life career, starting on the streets of London in the 60s, writing for the Melody Maker under the name of Mark Plummer, and then went on to, well, basically this and that, but also became the manager of Chris Isaak, who went on to have that massive hit called Wicked Game, and has written a book about 10 years ago, titled, he says, Charlie 6. I will put a link to his website in the notes below, so you'll be able to access some more information about Mr. Key. But in the meantime, this is the interview, so after several minutes of interest and a casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Brixton, over to you.
I was born in 1951, right after the war, during rationing. And my dad was a criminal, so the only sort of beat he knew was cops.
Right.
But my mum was a huge fan of Ray Charles. Maybe not at that time. Was Ray Charles out in 1951? I can't really remember, actually, but she was a big fan of swing music. And my brother was, I think he was 11 years older than me.
Right.
And he was a big fan of like Muddy Waters, Louis Armstrong, Cy Laurie, the British scene, more sort of Ackerbilk. Again, I think it might be early for Alexis Corner, but maybe Cyril Davis.
Yes.
And Chris Barber.
So kind of blues and jazz. She was quite hip to the trip. What was your dad's, apart from his interest in, day and nighttime job, what was he ever into any music or any culture at all?
No, not really. I guess art, because he dealt in a lot of forged shit.
Right, so he was into forgeries. That was all good. And was he ever part of any gangs or anything like that during that period?
No, but I met. My godfather was Jack Spott, who was sort of a precursor to the Craze, I guess. The Craze ran him out of town, really.
Right. Oh my God! It was like, so it was kind of and what would you? Because obviously your parents would have been old enough, or they would have been around in the wartime. Were they in London during that time of the Blitz and
just on the outskirts of London? I'm not quite sure where they were then. I think Surbiton. I'm not quite sure. No, they couldn't have been in Surbiton. They're just outside Isleworth, Brentford, I think.
Yes, but they must have been awake and aware of all the kind of trauma of the wartime period, actually, during that.
There were lots of factories and waterworks and gasworks. So if the planes are coming over London and the bomb gets stopped, they shoved them out in my mum's neck of the woods.
Right.
They bombed Twickenham a lot because of the railroad lines. My granny got, she got bombed. She lived on a little terrace, and she was like on the edge of, street, but she was on the edge, and then there's a road, and then there's the next part of the road, and that part of the road was completely blown up.
Yes.
Flew into my nanny's kitchen, but they slept under, I forget what they were called, these metal tables with chain mail going around them.
Right.
And that saved them. And
yes.
The funny thing was my Auntie Flo had, she was in service, and I'm not sure which family, but she was in service, I believe, in London. and she had an illegitimate child from one of the family. I'm not sure
Right.
which one. And she was banished to a house in the north where Goring stayed. And her story was always Goring hadn't tipped her when she was his maid at the big house. Not only did the bugger not tip me, now he's gone and bombed us.
Yes, God.
That's kind of funny.
Well,
And
yes.
my nan's house was fixed up pretty quick because, you know, my dad had contacts, you know.
Yes, he was in the building trade as well as the art world. My
Yes.
God. Were you ever close to your dad? Did you get to sort of know him as you were growing up? Did he feature much in your life?
Well, yeah, it was weird. You know, I was an accidental child. My mum got bombed when she was giving birth to my sister. One side of the hospital bomb dropped on right as my mum was giving birth to my sister Susan, who was a breech baby, and my mum's insides got ruptured by the instrument they were pulling my sister out with.
Right.
And she was told, you know, they'd never have any children. And, 10 years later, hello, here I am.
Yes. So you were the youngest of three with quite an age difference then.
Youngest of three, yeah, 10 years. My sister, 10 years. She was a big modern jazz fan. She liked, like Miles Davis and stuff. So it was, I had a really cool musical background, frankly. It was pretty
Well,
broad,
yes.
you know.
And was your brother, did he have that kind of influence? Did he start getting into things like the Beat Generation and certain writers as well?
Oh, God, yeah, they were beatniks. I mean, they were definitely beatniks. They dressed like beatniks. They did whatever beatniks did, you know.
Yes.
My sister was in fashion, so she always looked unbelievably great, you know.
Yes.
But my dad, when I came along, my parents' marriage was really terribly on the rocks, and then, of course, I guess the excitement of a new baby
Yes.
kind of pulled them back together again. But by the time I was 6 years old, we were living in a pub in London, central London, in Holborn. They split up. My dad, I don't know how, but he got my custody. Unfortunately, he got my custody because the judge, knowing his background, told him I had to be sent to a boarding school.
Right.
Which my dad also had told me I was going to a boarding school before that, because I was I was like an incorrigible little kid, you know. And he was like, you need some discipline, son. And then a year later, he just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Right.
So my mum and I sort of went from, kind of, well, lots of money. You know, in Goodfellas, where she goes shopping, he gives her
Yes, he gets the
money.
wads and she gets
That
just a
was,
little bit more.
yeah, that's like that's like being home. Well, I saw that, I was like, whoa. And the end of that was like being around my dad when he was leaving. So I got sort of stuck at boarding school, which was absolutely no fun. And my mum had no money. She was sort of like Holly Golightly. It was a kind of crazy childhood, you know.
Well, yes. So
But
you're
the nice thing was, my mum realized that by the time I was like 13, 12, really, 11, 12, I was like, please take me away from this sordid fucking place, you know. Boarding schools weren't nice then. I used to get caned at least once a week. You know, I was always in trouble.
yes.
She wouldn't take me out of school because I realized later, because she just knew I'd never bother going to school. You know, I'd be truant the whole time. But on the holidays, I was allowed to do what I wanted. So I was going into Soho all-nighters at the, what's it called? I can't think of the great all-nighter. I was like, going out in Soho when I was 12, 13 years old, spending weekends sort of running around.
So your dad just disappeared. Was that the last time you saw him when you were about 7 at boarding school?
No, I saw him in LA I saw him in LA and I saw him in San Francisco. He disappeared to Australia. And frankly, the first time I managed to stomach him for about 20 minutes.
Yes.
And the second time, he pissed me off so much that I just took it, put my hands over and put his soup right in his lap and left. So that was my 2 experiences with my dad since I was, knee-high to a rabbit.
Yes, but your mum kept you in boarding school even when your dad had disappeared?
Yeah, because I was at a school called the Licensed Fiddlers School, which was licensed fiddlers. All the publicans used to be licensed fiddlers. It was like a society.
Yes.
Back to Dickens' time, when people died suddenly. So it was a society originally that looked after widows and looked after orphan children.
Yeah.
Then the sort of orphanage closed. It was in the East End somewhere, and they moved to Slough and became a boarding school. So it was kind of cool. I mean, in some ways, it was a cool school because about a third of the kids were publicans' children that were sent to school because they were naughty.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the kids were a lot of diplomat children. So we had kids from all over the world, which was really cool. I mean, we grew up with Jamaican kids, Iranian, Italian, French.
And was it a kind of a classical education that you were getting here? Were you sort of...
Yeah. When I look back, I mean, it was kind of amazing because I left. Well, I didn't leave. I was expelled when I was like almost 15. I was expelled from school. And when I sort of look at my girlfriend's grandkids in America, their education seemed I was as educated at 14, like, I mean, it was a good education without a doubt.
Yes.
It's just a fucking horrid place, man. Boarding school is
Was it like Tom Brown's school days?
That was my big worry when I first knew I was going there, because my brother had read me bits of it and then made me read it.
Oh, God.
So I imagined all these things. It wasn't really like Tom Brown's school days. And one of the great things was I had a friend whose mum had a pub in Stepney. And I'm in this, dropped off by my parents at this boarding school. And I'm like, I didn't really know what to expect. And I'd grown up with au pair girls looking after me and stuff. I'd grown up sort of, kind of quite a nice life, really, as a little boy. And I'm in this dormitory thinking, where the hell am I? This is horrid. And who should walk in but my best friend from Stepney, whose parents had also sent him to boarding school.
Yes.
So suddenly it was, oh, man,
Yes. And why did you get expelled at 15?
I had arranged with my English teacher. He taught language and literature, that I could read from Howl as long as I didn't read the naughty bits.
Right.
And amazingly, the teacher, who was a lovely guy, I can't remember his name now, he was a great guy. He got the flu and he couldn't take the class, and the headmaster took the class, and I thought, okay, this is it. So it was like, the motorbike angels of the night being fucked up the ass by, and I just I picked every bad bit because I knew the poem so well, and he just was like, shaking with rage, and the class was like, what the hell's going on,
Yes, well, there you go.
And he was like, my study boy, and I thought, I think I'm going to be expelled, because I used to get sent home for, a week for smoking and stuff. But I was a good sportsman. And I also had a Guinness scholarship, so I wasn't the sort of kid you really throw out of school, But this time I really did get expelled.
God, that's a bit harsh. But anyway, look, 15, so you didn't do O-levels or whatever they were back in the 60s. So this is like about 65. I mean, this is like the sort of the explosion of pop, rock, psychedelia was all happening. Were you conscious of all the kind of the change of blues and jazz to sort of...
Yeah, I was out every night. On school holidays, I was out the whole time. I mean, my sister took me to see the Stones. My sister used to take me. She was a really pretty woman. And she used to take me to gigs with her some gigs, when I was little. And she'd seen Mick Jagger in Richmond and said to a friend, "Woo, he's beautiful," And a friend said, "Oh, they're in a band called the Rolling Stones." So she was going with her boyfriend. He couldn't make it. And my sister used to take me to sing sometimes, because when guys hit on her, she could introduce me as her son.
Excellent.
Which immediately got rid of the guy,
Yes.
I want that, And so the first band I saw was the Stones, and I'd never really seen slide guitar.
Right.
It was like, that's how they get that sound. I mean, it was remarkable.
Yes.
And then, I like pop music, but it also, I mean, there was so much crap around, And then we're in the bathrooms at school listening to the radio, smoking with my pal Radzi and a couple of other friends, and Love Me Do came on. And it was just like, woof, we were over the school wall in a second went to W.H. Smith's, waiting outside when they opened so we could buy the single,
Right, yes.
And the lady said, "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, but we ordered 4 copies and they were all
Snapped up. Yes, my God.
Girls had ordered them, but we do have another 6 coming." And I was like, "Well, put us down,"
God, she was cautious on her purchasing stock, wasn't she?
That was like the changing moment in my life. At that moment, it was like all I wanted to do was listen to music and be involved in music.
And did you get involved in going to those, like Joe Boyd put on those nights, didn't they? UFO, and there was people like Barry Miles and John John Hopkins, who was all part of that crew, Indica Books and stuff like that. Did you start sort of go into psychedelic lovings and dropping acid?
Sort of went from a mod quite quickly, I think, to growing longer hair and dropping acid and smoking. Well, I smoked a lot of pot, really, from when I was about 8 years old, because my sister used to have her beatnik friends over in her bedsit. Like my summer holidays, I was kind of like a gypsy. I'd stay with my mum for a few days, and my nanny, and my grandma, my auntie, my sister, I just sort of moved around.
Yes, well, God. And then sort of 66, 67, it's coming up to the summer of love. So you're not at school. Have you got some other daytime occupation at this stage? Did you go to work or apprenticeship or?
Oh, no. When I left school, my mum said, "Well, you got to get a job." And my uncle said, I know when it's a job, and called someone, and they said, "Send the boy down," and went down, did an interview. And I got a job drilling holes. I forget what I drew on now. It's a piece of metal, and it comes on the conveyor belt, and I go "Wow," like this. And I
Okay.
thought, this is the most awful thing. You know, I was just like, I shouldn't be back at school doing this. This is awful. And when the
Yes.
lunch bell rang, I'm pulling the handle down. I'm about halfway through the hole, and I finished the hole. And the union guy came over and said, "You can't do that. When the lunch bell starts, you stop." And I'm like, "But I was just filling the hole, man." And he goes, "You can't do that. You know, that's, you know." And I quit. And I went home. My mum said, "You know, if you're not going to have a real job, you have to go out on your own to find out what it's like if you don't work." And I said,
Right.
"Sure, you know." And I guess, you know, aunties, uncles, grannies and stuff all gave me a few pounds each, you know. I got off the tube in Notting Hill Gate, my two suitcases with all my clothes very nicely folded. And um, I had an apartment that evening, you know. And uh, I think in those days it was probably about £3 a week rent, you know, so you needed about £3 and about £6. So you paid a week and a week in advance.
Yes, yes. So
And
you're
then
about 17, 18 at this stage
oh no,
in
I was 15.
15, my God. And so you so
Six,
it's a bit
six.
different parenting then to what it is like now
Oh
when
yeah.
kids never leave home, isn't it really?
Well, people got jobs. I mean, you know, people working in coal mines at 14, you know.
Well, yes, actually, that's right. My dad left school when he was about 14 or 15 and had to bike about 4 miles in all weather to start working. And you think, God, when you meet a 14-year-old now, 15-year-old, they're tiny, aren't they?
No,
It's
no, my sort of grandkids via my girlfriend, you know, they would just be like, oh, you know, their dad, who's my age, would say, really, honestly, that, you know, I was working at 15. You were, Dad? Blimey, you know.
yes, it's
It
quite tricky, isn't it?
surprised.
So you got your flat and you're living on your own. How do you navigate the rest of the 60s at this stage?
Well, I knew so many people in Soho that I just sort of got, you know, I kind of lived off my wits. So I ran lots of errands for people. People had asked me, "Could you run this over here?" I was like a freelance messenger boy.
Yes,
And I get half a crown, 5 bob. You know, actually I was doing quite well. And I also knew a lot of Jamaican guys that dealt drugs. And so I'd always get kids coming up to me. I guess I looked like I knew where you could get drugs. And
right.
I would tell them, you know, wait here or there or go in the, you know, coffee bar or something. And then I take one, you know, one of my friends would come in with me and they had different prices. You know, if you were like an East End kid, you know, London, like, um, I think they were probably threepence for, you know, amphetamine. And if you were sort of had a more home counties voice, they were sixpence. If,
Right.
if you were unlucky enough to come from Leeds or somewhere, then I think they probably charged ninepence or a shilling, and I would get a piece. Well, I would get some pills in exchange, which then I could sell. So I did okay, you know.
Yes,
I
can't
never had
be.
to pay to go anywhere because all the clubs, I got in all the clubs free, you know.
And were
Uh,
you sort of tuned in? Was it International Times and Oz magazine? Were you still curious and tuned into the kind of the counterculture at this stage with long hair and thinking about,
oh
you know,
yeah, my girlfriend, sort of in the senior years at school, we sort of drifted apart. Obviously, when you leave school, you know, boarding schools a long way from wherever you live. But I'm out one day and there's Sally. "Oh, Sally, how are you?" And she was writing for IT.
Right. So there you go. That's amazing. And did you
Yeah.
do any of those kind of events? There was like I think it was June 1967, there was the 14-hour Technicolor Dream at the Alley Pally. Did you go to any of those kind of happenings?
I went to them, but I went to a couple at the Roundhouse. The best happenings I went to were what art school was it? One of the art schools had like happenings at the Roundhouse and other places. They were a little bit more fun because they were more arty,
Yes.
It was like, not only tripping, but actually machines blowing bubbles and things you could go down where lights flashed, and it was kind of more trippy.
And what was your kind of band or album of choice at that kind of psychedelic period of the 60s?
Ooh, boy. Probably, I mean, like Aftermath, God, it's so hard to remember times and things, but Pink Floyd, um, Stones, Beatles. I like the Jefferson Airplane
Yes.
a lot. I thought they were sort of super. I saw them quite a few times. I never was really into the Grateful Dead. I like the Quicksilver Messenger Service.
Yes.
And It's a Beautiful Day. That was a lovely record with the strings and everything. And
Yeah.
Incredible String Band, I liked.
Oh, so you got into this, every 5 years I try and listen to the Incredible String Band, and it still eludes me. The Hangman's Beautiful. It's still, I kind of want to like it. I even did an interview with one of the women who brought a book out a few years ago, and she was lovely. And she was just amazing, story, that community. I mean, very artistic, but it's still, did you see them live at all?
Yeah, quite a few times. Yeah, they were really great. It was just super. I was a big fan of Burt Yanks and John Renbourn. I used to go see them.
And
Lot
there was
of
an amazing guitarist called David Graham, wasn't there, as well?
Oh,
And
he was Superman. Yeah, yeah.
he was the business actually at that stage.
Yeah.
And what about Donovan and Dylan, people like that? Did they come onto your
Oh,
radar?
Dylan, definitely. I mean, actually, when I think about this, I heard Dylan before the Beatles. One of my friends' dads was a big collector of blues. He had an unbelievable collection of 78s and early country stuff, hillbilly music. He when he was a kid, he lived near Bushy Park, which was a
Right.
huge tent city with American servicemen. And he used to go shine shoes for black guys and hillbillies and stuff. He would shine their boots for them. And when D-Day came along, because he liked the music, he was given so many records because they couldn't take the records with them.
Yes.
They were able to bring them, 5 or 6 each kind of thing to England, but then they gave them to my friend's dad.
Wow, that must have been the best record collection ever, actually.
Oh, it was great, and he brought Bob Dylan's album because of "See My Graves Kept Clean."
Right.
Just on, wow, he looked cool. He brought it, like the whole vibe. And I saw it and I thought, oh man, this is amazing, the cover, because it looked like Oliver Twist.
Yes.
And we put it on. It was breathtaking. I played that. I had to beg my mum for money to go buy that.
Oh, so you were right there on the very early Dylan period. And did Soho also have quite a folk scene, or singer-songwriter and kind of poets as well?
Yeah, there were folk clubs. I forget so many of the names. I mean, it's so long ago, 60 years ago. Um, it's like they say, if you can remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
Yes, well, I guess when something's happening, you just take it for granted. It's only when you realise things change and suddenly, yes, it's
Yeah.
not there anymore that you think, oh yes, it's just finished. Yeah, and how did it feel? Because you were obviously about 1920 when as the decade finished, and you had Brian Jones die, and then you had Janis Joplin, Hendrix and Jim Morrison. Then there was Altamont, and obviously, like any scene, you think, oh, this is all beautiful, and then you attract a few more people and a few more who aren't quite got the ethos and the kind of intent to have a good positive time. So, how did you navigate that bit from the 60s into the 70s?
Well, I got hired at Melody Maker. I think ended, I can't actually remember, but whenever sound started, and Melody Maker lost a lot of their staff to go to sounds, I managed to blag my way into a job at Melody Maker.
Right. Did you have to write a piece for them?
I had to review Rob McEwen. Who was sort of a terrible poet, and oh god, it was just awful. I was thinking, oh man, I don't really know what to say. Anyway, I wrote kind of a blistering review. It wasn't very good, but it was blistering, and they got a ton of mailbags. People wanted to murder me for putting Rob McEwen down. I guess he had a real cult following.
Right.
And Ray Coleman hired me on that strength.
Yes, and that was the 70s. And did it feel quite I did an interview with Nick Kent a few years ago when he brought out a novel, but he was saying that when he started at the NME, which was probably 73, 74, he said that he was like aware that the journalists who'd been there were still waiting for the Beatles to reform, and he was thinking, no, there's a whole new scene, man, you're just out of touch. Did you feel like the young kid on the block who had their finger on the pulse?
Well, not really. I think it was a pretty hip, at the time. No, I felt, my first interview, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, man. I really didn't. And I was so lucky. It was status quo.
Brilliant.
And they basically did the interview for me. And I went back and I was sat on my typewriter going, oh God, how do you actually do this? I mean, I could write. I've been writing since I was tiny, and Chris Welch, bless his heart, said, just start writing. And I just started writing. And I guess, we were under a lot of pressure. We did like 4 or 5 interviews every week, So you just learn. I mean, months of doing that, and you figured it out.
Yes. God, that's quite amazing. So I remember talking to Barry Miles and saying, God, obviously in the 60s, he was everywhere creating these scenes. And then in the 70s, he just wasn't about. And I asked him, why? And he said, actually, we were just all completely burnt out. We just needed a rest. And actually, his 70s, a bit like Joe Boyd, he said, yeah, he wrote about the 60s, but he said, I didn't really have much to say about the 70s. I mean, he did work with Nick Drake, but yes, it wasn't his decade. Did you feel that the 70s, you had a grasp of the musical trends at this time?
Yeah, because you're just out all the time. And in those days, there was such access to other musicians, like I interviewed Nick Drake 2 or 3 times, but I also drank with Nick Drake, where he would mention something and some act or a record, and you'd go get it,
Yes, well, absolutely. That was the best. That was the equivalent of the internet, really, wasn't it? Someone's suggestion. You went, oh, okay. Yes, that's how we found out about music.
You sort of had tremendous back then. I've been in the dressing room of the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney. I've spent 3 or 4 days in LA, hanging with John Lennon, you know. I mean, you just had access to people. I've been in, funny, you know, Ozzy just died, but I actually got stuck to Ozzy's boots one day. He'd invited me down to his house, not to interview, just to hang out with his first wife. And I can't really remember. I mean, it was a total blind weekend, you know, we're drinking and smoking so much dope and snorting so much coke. But we fell asleep really drunk in the, you know, in this kind of rec room. And I woke up and I couldn't move my head. I was like stuck. I was stuck to a great glob of mud on Ozzy's boot. I had to ease his boots off and go to the bathroom with his boot stuck to my head and wash his boot off, you know.
Nice. My God. There you go. That's
his
so
wife
did
pissed off.
yes. I can't remember who was before Sharon, but yes, the dear old. And did your sort of the musical? Did you were talking about rock there with Status Quo and obviously quite a few people, but what about the glam period? Did David Bowie or Lou Reed? Did they come onto your radar?
Yeah, I knew. It's funny enough. It's not so much I knew David Bowie, but hanging around in Soho, sort of during afternoons, you got to meet, you know, like I knew Steve Marriott quite well, because we were always hanging out in the same coffee bars, you know. It's, oh, where'd you get those shoes, man?
Yes.
And so I met, we weren't friends, but we were sort of like, whoa, where'd you get that shirt, David? You know, where did you get my shirt? So
Yes. Did you ever go to the
I knew
Sombrero?
Mark.
Did you ever go to the Sombrero Club that he used to be around with Freddie Boretti during that kind of almost pre-Ziggy period?
I think so. I must have done. I can't really remember, but I had to have done, you know, because we were just out. I knew Mark quite well, Mark Boland.
Yes.
You know, right when T-Rex. Well, I knew Mark from when he was on, you know, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yes.
That's when I went to the Roundhouse to see someone, and there was Mark. I was like, fuck, that's Mark.
Yes.
And
Were you
so,
aware of John Peel's Perfume Garden at this stage as well?
yeah. That was, you know, John Peel was a cool guy. I mean, he was someone that was always turning you on to new things. You
Well,
know.
yes. I know his producer, John Walters, said that if John Peel, reached puberty, we'd be in trouble. And I think he managed to keep that enthusiasm of a 16-year-old who, yes, just was always looking for that new record by a little band, a young band, which is just brilliant because you need stamina to keep interested. And he was always my go-to person that I would just say, I'll just listen to the Peel show and he'll do the work for me. And, you know, it'll be a reggae track or an African track or indie pop track that you think, oh yes, that was worth listening to. So he was a brilliant person. He curated his show so well. And then
wonderful.
yes, and then as the 70s progressed, did you keep excited with things like prog rock coming in and then sort of like
No. No, not really. I mean, I liked Keith Am. I loved them nice. Oh, they were great. And you know, I sort of liked the LP because I liked Greg Lake's voice, but I think not really. It all got sort of too big and boring and clever. In fact, I can really remember actually saying to a friend and I were talking about Sergeant Pepper's, and I thought then, you know, this is all going to get clever.
right?
So I was sort of more like into the Quivers and Brinsley Schwartz's, 101ers, you know,
What
all
about
the pub bands, you know.
was Dr. Feelgood and the Doctors of Madness? Were they on your Richard Strange? Were they on
Oh
your
yeah,
radar?
they were super. They were super. That's where I started going to see bands like that a lot more. I mean, like Yes and stuff was, oof, God, you know. And the early
Pompous.
Yes was great. I liked Tony Kaye. I liked their early, but then everything just got too complex, too self-aware.
Yes, there was a lot of solos, weren't there? Everyone needed to do their clever solo and bring in
Yes,
sort of classical little pieces just to have a
yeah.
nod to their dexterity and skill levels. And then did that moment that you started being aware, sort of 76 punk, were you still
I,
having the energy for punk?
yeah, but it's kind of weird. I saw The Clash, I think at the ICA, and it was just like, boom, light bulb went off. This is fucking great, you know. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. But the trouble is, I was having some problems with tax people, money problems, problems with the drug squad. And my mum said, I think you should go back to America. I
When she
think,
said go back to America, had you already been to America?
yeah, I was living in America from, I can't remember, 73 to maybe 70, late 74.
Right. Were you still working for the Melody Maker, or had you?
No, I was just hanging out, really having fun in LA.
Right.
I
Were
knew
you
lots.
were you doing any writing at this stage, or were you just at the
No, I was just
Troubadour?
sort of just hanging out the Troubadour and um, oh God, what was it? The nightclub there, just off of Sunset, and the whiskey and what have you.
Did you ever get to Laurel Canyon?
Yeah, yeah, I had friends that lived in Laurel Canyon.
My God, you seem to be able to sort of get on the scene very smoothly here, don't you?
Yeah, I don't know why actually, but I was back here for a few years. Then I, as I say, I went back to America. I was in New York, sort of crashing at different friends' places, and it was so cold, man. It was winter, and after about 6 weeks, I thought I got to go somewhere warmer, and I went down to Memphis to visit some friends, and it was snowing there, which was really weird when I turned up in their house, and they were like in a little shack. Oh God, it was cold. And I was talking to a friend in New York. He said, you always wanted to drive Route 66. And I said, yeah, he goes, come back to New York. You can take my car to LA for me. I need this Mercedes in LA. He said, there's no hurry. Just, if you could get there in the next month, that'd be great.
My God. It
So
was it was it like Fear and Loathing by Hunter S. Thompson?
no, I just sort of actually it was kind of cool. I sort of took loads of back roads. I mean, I was just driving, to places I'd heard of on records, like let's go to Marlborough County.
Excellent. Yes.
um, so I sort of I kind of tried to stay on Route 66, but I took big detours off. 66 was Um, pretty much dead then. I mean, now it's like they've reinvented 66, but then it was pretty dead. It's kind of fun.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And cheap gasoline. And though I think there might have been an oil crisis around 73, 74. I can't remember. But there was some sort of oil problem, wasn't there, with
yeah, yeah, I can't
yes.
remember either. I
So
went
once you got to LA with your
one day
Mercedes,
in LA. So I got to LA and I dropped the Mercedes off somewhere for my friend, and um, I was at a Who concert and I met a girl, and we were hanging out a lot and having fun and stuff. And she, via a friend, said, want to come to the Mosque? It was a club where punk bands were playing. I went and I was like, wow, it was great. It was really, like the Germs, X, the Go-Go's. I used to say it when I used to go out with, oh dear, she'd kill me. I can't remember her name.
There was a band, and there was another one. I don't know if they were LA. We had a guy called Lance Loud who became quite famous, which, if I can remember, he was one of those people who became very well known because they decided to do a television thing with this family, and it all seemed to be the perfect American family. But then the parents were sort of bonkers, and then he sort of announces that he's gay. And in the early 70s, that is not quite what people want to hear. Oh, there was the band called the Mumps. That's it.
Oh,
The
yeah,
Mumps.
don't know that.
But they were slightly on that kind of scene. They might have been a bit later. But anyway, so yes, The Mask. It was a punk.
I love like the Germs. The Germs were great favourites. The Plugs were super. And there were some really great bands there. The Avengers out of San Francisco.
Oh, yes.
There was no audience for it because America wasn't like England, I mean, people had rich parents and cars and
Yes.
it didn't really make a lot of sense, And
No.
then I was helping bands book and getting publicity and not really managing, but most of those bands didn't really have managers, so I was kind of helping them,
Yes.
Actually living above the Mosque, which was underneath the cinema that showed Deep Throat 24 hours a day.
Right. Well, there you go. Interesting audience underneath your window.
Yeah. I was kind of squatting. There was a mosque in the basement and a porno theatre, and I was squatting in Cecil B. DeMille's old cutting room.
Right. Blimey,
Which
Cecil
is
B.
great,
I have to say, this is fantastic stuff, isn't it? Really. So then, did you then at that stage then go back to England, or had you come out of?
I was can't remember who was Controllers, I think. I went up to a show with them in San Francisco. I wanted to see my friends in the Avengers and stuff. And I bumped into a girl there and just stayed. I stayed in San Francisco and I started managing a band called No Alternative, who were really good. But again, there really wasn't the audience.
Yes.
And strangely enough, I heard this tape of a guy named Chris singing two country songs on a tape that was a tape of a tape of a tape, so and I said, oh, this guy's fucking great. It's just amazing. I was just singing one of those songs, Flowers for Mama, which are hard songs to sing. They're so corny, it's the little boy gathering wildflowers who's getting dressed up in his best to go to his mum's funeral. And, country songs have such great stories, but
Yes.
if they're not done really well, they're sort of a bit crass, Anyway, I tried finding this guy called Chris. And then I found out, I got a bit more information. His name was Chris Isaak, and he came from Stockton. And I thought, well, Stockton's I thought it was like a tiny little town. I had no idea it was like 40,000 people there or something, which is still a tiny little town. But so I went up there and I thought, I'll drive up and go to the clubs. But there were no clubs there. It was a totally pointless exercise. And I was still asking around and just getting nowhere. And I bumped into this guitar player. Man, this guy was such a pain in the ass. That this was the days of Cool Box, and I saw him, and I saw a Cool Box. I saw him. I thought, I'll go into Cool Box and pretend I'm making a phone call. And I couldn't shake him. So I pretended, I'll see you. Yeah, I'll see you later. Bye. Phone down. I said, hey, man, what are you up to? He goes, I'm working with this guy. He's amazing. His name's Chris Isaak. And I went, bang, you are fucking kidding me. So I said, made up a story. I forget the story, but I made up a story that maybe Chris wanted a guitar from someone and I needed his telephone number. And I phoned Chris and I said to him, hi, I said, well, I forget exactly the conversation, but he said to me, well, what can you do for me? And I don't know how it blurted out, but I said, I can make you famous.
Right. Well, there you go.
It was like one of those Cliff Richards movies, I can make you famous. And we both just fell about with laughter. Absolutely. We're laughing our heads off on the phone because it was so ridiculous. And I said to him, who would you like in your band? And he said, I'd love John Silvers on drums. And I knew John was getting sacked that week. I'd like Jimmy Wilsey from the Avengers, and the Avengers had broken up. And I knew Jimmy was looking for something to do. And so we'd have had bass and drums. And I said to Chris, why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night? And I'll phone John. He goes, you know John? I said, yeah, it's a friend of mine. I'll phone John, see if he'll come over. And I'll phone Jimmy. You know Jimmy? Yeah, it's a friend of mine. So the three of them came over, for pasta dinner and brought guitars. And John always had a pair of drumsticks, and they sort of played in my living room all night. And I booked rehearsal space. Jimmy played bass, but he couldn't quite make up his mind about Chris. So he to keep Jimmy involved, I asked him if he would do our sound. And we found a bass player and then hooked up with Eric Jacobson via another sort of friend of a friend of a friend. Had told Erica they were a great band, and Erica called me and I said, come. We were playing a gig at the art school, the end of term dance at the art school in San Francisco. And oh man, if you ever wanted someone who could really help your career to turn up, it couldn't have been worse and it couldn't have been better. It was so hot in there that the drum sound was changing because the heat was, expanding the head on the drum. The guitars wouldn't stay in tune. By this time, we had Jimmy in the band. Jimmy was playing guitar, a great guitar man.
And was John on drums?
And John was on drums. And Eric came and he loved it. And he said, let's, we talked and cut a deal between us, cut a deal with Chris. All verbal, just handshakes.
Yes.
And we went in the studio and it just, John was a sort of a good live drummer, but actually he couldn't really hold time. It was really easy to lose time, which is the worst thing in the band you can have. And it was so apparent on the demos. It was just so absolutely apparent. And also it was really apparent that Chris didn't actually know how records sounded. He had the worst stereo, man. It was like, something that cost $5 from a thrift shop. And Chris was like, it should sound. Chris went and Eric and I remixed everything, cut pieces of tape out to make the drums work, We spent about 18 hours in the studio finishing these demos. And I took them to Warner Brothers, who were like, now this is horrid. Anyway. But we managed to get to, or Eric did really, to Mo Austin, and we got a deal with Warner Brothers. We went in the studio. We got Chris Solberg and Prairie Prince. I don't know if you know of Prairie. He's with the Tubes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, he's an amazing drummer. Absolutely an amazing drummer. I mean, he's so entertaining. I was in the car with him in his car one day, and his windscreen wipers were making a rhythm as they went around, and then they would hit, blank and go back and making this rhythm. Prairie's on the steering wheel playing this unbelievable percussive part to the windscreen wipers. I mean, it was so entertaining, man. Anyway, we cut the album with Chris, and stuff took off,
Yes. How did you get to know John before this? Because he was a very early drummer of Genesis, hadn't he?
Oh no, this was John Silvers, who was no, he was an American. He was with
John Silvers, not Silvers.
Yeah. No.
Right. Yes.
Was the two big bands out of San Francisco were the Dills and the Avengers.
Yes.
Dills would have never made it here because I think they were basically a carbon copy in every way of the Clash, but
yes,
good. The Avengers were super. They if they'd been in London, they would have been big.
Yeah.
They were just in the wrong place.
They supported the Sex Pistols, didn't they, on their last ever gig in 78?
And the Pistols management was very interested in them, but I think they were just, Rory was, I think they were just so busy that the Avengers kind of got left behind. I think that's what broke them up, actually, was they got a taste and then nothing happened. Things happen like that. I
think sometimes people are thinking we're not really, things aren't progressing and we're not really sort of getting to that next level. So this was kind of, this was like the early to mid 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, early 80s.
This is the early 80s period. How were you kind of also navigating that kind of musically as well? Because obviously there was the punk period and that sort of fades, and then you have post-punk, and then, another decade appears. Were you still really enjoying music at this stage? Because there wasn't, because Dwight Yoakam happens a bit more kind of later. There isn't that many people that sound like Chris.
Dwight, actually, we knew Dwight because he was signed to Warner Brothers to Reprise, I think, the same time as we were. God, he had a great guitar player whose name escapes me. Absolutely one of the best guitar players I've ever
Was Charlie Sexton around at that stage as well?
Yeah, Charlie was fun. I used to see Charlie all over the place. He was a crazy kid. He was out gigging when he was like 11 or something.
I think he's still with Dylan, isn't he? Actually, I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah. And were you picking up how to be a manager at this stage? By the way.
Well, when I was in America and then I came back to England, I had a job in publicity. I was actually offered a job by a friend of mine, an acquaintance who I bumped into in LA and said, I could really do with you in England. This is, he was at Pie Records and they were talking about starting this new label. And really the only thing that happened was we signed Ian Dury.
Right.
To Kilburn and the High Roads, which was great. Ian was super. He's such a great guy to be around. He was really fun. The band, the Kilburn and the High Roads, I thought were just absolutely super, super duper stuff.
Yeah, there were some. Joe Jackson also had this incredible band, didn't he? And just like players that you listen to the bass or you listen to the saxophone, or they just knew how to play live, didn't they?
Yeah.
And on the studio as well. But when you listen back to those records, they are like, God, that's a lot of stuff going on to these players.
Yeah, I don't think the records ever quite caught what they had live. It's hard to I have to go back and play them tonight and see.
Yes. But the bands like Nine Below Zero, who, again, live was stunning, but on record, it's like, it's all right. It's not going to sell 1 million, is it, really? So, but if you saw them live, it was like, God, what a band. But yeah, I just listened to sometimes Joe Jackson's first album, Look Sharp, and you think, God, these players are stunning. And same with Ian Dury and people. So, yes. So you've got your sort of management chops by sort of, all your other activities that you'd been involved with.
Yeah, I mean, I was more like good at promotion and knowing how to put things together. I've never been a very clever businessman, or I'd be kind of wealthy now. But I was, I knew how to get things happening. With Chris, all the bands, it's just always a thing I never could understand. And with American bands, it was like, well, if we only play once a month, then people really want to come see us. But I thought, if we, I grew up sort of with Small Faces playing, short runs places, with The Who playing every Wednesday, with bands playing, what do you call it, where they'll be on every Wednesday.
Oh, a residency.
Residencies.
Yes.
So we started playing a lot with Chris. It was better than rehearsing. You got paid, and you learnt your chops in front of people a lot faster than sitting in a rehearsal room.
Yes.
Although we were lucky because most of the bands had real jobs, so they would rehearse in the evening. And we made friends with a really great guy, had a whole bunch of studios in a big warehouse, which is now $1 million loft apartments. But at the time, it was just a big rundown fucking warehouse place. And he used to let us rehearse there for free during the day because he couldn't rent the space and he liked the music.
Right.
So it was great. We had like free rehearsal. It didn't cost us anything. I mean, we'd buy in, beers and things, but and then we just played our asses off. We took any fucking gig. I mean, it didn't matter. It was $20 for the night. We took it,
Yes.
And Chris got a lot of girl followers. So when we sort of stopped playing to record, which was a long process. I mean, Chris didn't really know what he was doing. We had to send him for some singing lessons, which is common, I mean, he had a great voice, but it's actually how to use it. You do kind of need some help, Lots of people do anyway. And we took a lot of time recording in a really little studio, $10 an hour studio, instead of going into, 100 an hour.
Yes.
So we could leave everything set up and just turn up when the band felt like it. It was a nice way to work.
They were very loyal, weren't they? Because they must have been wondering if this was a gig that was going to pay their any lifestyle, really, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't at that stage looking that amazing. We
were drawing. I think we were drawing about $600 a week, and then in that lag time for the album to come out and stuff, we started playing. Actually, we were making a lot of money. We were playing places like Club 9 6 nights a week to 600 people a night at
right.
$7.50 a ticket. That's actually good money, and I think we were getting 75% of the door. But we started in the tiniest club. It was tiny. It could hold 75 people. And the word got out, and there would be like 200, 300 people trying to get in every night. And that's what really did it, because people wanted to see Chris, even if they'd never seen him. The word was out. And you couldn't get any more people in. This place was, you had to smoke with your cigarette above your head.
Oh, right.
You had to have an
Oh,
umbrella
God.
over the soundboard because of the condensation falling onto the soundboard.
Was it his looks that people were just getting, and MTV? Was that all helping?
It was MTV. Chris had a good look, and they were a super band. I mean, they really, really, really were tight as could be. We found a great bass player. Found, Jimmy was playing guitar. We got. I was out with the Jefferson
Starship?
Starship, I guess.
Yes.
Publicist, who was a real good friend of mine. And she was a big fan of local bands. And we were in a pub where the Boys of the Lock had played a gig.
Oh, yes.
We'd been to see the Boys of the Lock, and then they invited us back to a pub they were just going to hang with, where loads of friends were going. And there was a guy there, Rory Sally, who the Starship had really wanted as their bass player, and he'd actually said he'd committed to the gig. And I was introduced to him by my friend Nadine, and I was talking to Rory, and I said, oh God, why are you joining them? They're so old hat, so date and da-da-da. I said, just come down to a rehearsal, come down to our rehearsal. We had our own rehearsal room by then. Come to our rehearsal room tomorrow and meet Chris and hang out, see. And he came down, he just loved it, man. He just clicked, bang, right into it. And that was the missing link. And we had a great drummer, really fantastic drummer, who sort of journeyman. He played with all the local blues bands. He must have been in about 10 bands. And any time a blues person came to town, needed a pickup band, he was a drummer.
Yes.
We've just got so lucky, man. And he loved the music too. So we suddenly had a really good rhythm section.
Blimey.
And that was just, it just really, really, really was great.
Yes. God, that's
everything for me, actually, tell you the truth, it got sort of boring. Chris was a guy of habit, and I got sort of bored. And then I had a brain aneurysm, 2 of them, boring.
Was that in the 80s?
Yeah, late mid-80s. I bought a house by then, and I just sort of stopped working with Chris, and I was looking for something else that would be fun to do. And I bent down to pull out a weed, and boom, my head blew up. And I kind of knew I had a brain aneurysm because my sister had died of one.
Oh, God.
And my great uncle, my grandma's brother, who I look spitting image of. I mean, it's amazing. Even, and they have pictures of him like 70 years before I was born or something. But he was a spitting image. My grandma always spoilt me because he was her favorite brother.
Yes.
And he died. He was an operetta singer. He had one hit record. He was in New Orleans. He told his dresser that he wasn't feeling very well. Please don't let anyone in the dressing room. And the dresser banged on the door and said it's time to go on. Apparently he stood up and dropped dead.
My God.
He must have had a brain aneurysm,
Yes, so there must have been some generic thing. God. So how do you having that incident? What happens to you?
Well, you're scared out of your brain because it's like I have to have brain surgery.
Yes, but luckily you didn't. Someone found you and found the ambulance.
I was with my girlfriend who was a chiropractor, and she could feel that my circuit of my blood was going wrong.
Yes.
It felt wrong, and she said, I called an ambulance. I said, look, you're a doctor. It's Sunday morning. It was like 8 a.m. I said, just get me to a hospital. I'm dying. I know I'm dying, And she drove like a bat out of hell. And I told her, if the police stop you, you're a doctor. And you're taking me to hospital, and it'd be good. We have a police escort, We get there even quicker. And being
And how did you have insurance at that stage? I mean, it's not like
I have really good insurance. Yeah,
right. So they operated once or twice.
no, just once, and I was dead lucky. I knew a brain surgeon very, very well, and I used to go to these fancy parties at his house. One time I was sitting with Reagan from Ronald Reagan's government, I can't remember what he did in the government. And people were trying to talk to him. I was sat in their lovely ballroom with all this, FBI stopping us 2 blocks away and they're having you get out the car and driving you up to the house because, you might be shooting the ex-government minister.
Yes, well, absolutely.
And I sat with this guy and he was... he was so charming, and he kept saying, "No, I want to hear all these rock and roll stories. They're so great." I got so drunk with this guy. I mean, he was a terrible man, really, but it was really fun hanging with him. And anyway, I said to my girlfriend at the time, "Call Dr. Chang, and see." Because I didn't like the brain surgeons at all. He was like, well, doctors are hard to like,
Yes.
in those situations. But he seemed like a bit of a know-it-all. I don't know, I just didn't feel that comfortable. Anyway, Dr. Chen told my wife, it was amazing. He said, I trained Peter Weber. He's the finest surgeon I ever trained. And I'll be there in the morning for the morning rounds with him. So it was so nice. I saw my friend come in, who's a brain surgeon, with the younger brain surgeon. And he was part of the surgery team. But I mean, he didn't do any of the going in my brain and stuff, But he was there advising.
Blimey, that is incredible.
I came out of surgery, I wake up, oh man, I had a headache. I mean, I was so weak. I can't tell you how weak I felt. It felt like I was using every bit of energy to breathe, And my first thought was, do I have a memory?
Oh, yes.
So, like, what's my phone number? What was my mum's phone number? And that was like my mum's first phone number when we were 10 years old before we moved. So I remembered it. I was like, oh, good, I can remember this. What's my social security number? Oh, good, I remember that. What's Chris's phone number? What's his private phone number? Yeah, I know that.
Right.
Then I thought, can I wiggle my toes? Yeah. Can I move my leg? Yeah. Is my willy still sensitive?
Yes. There you go. I know it's all these things. I know. I mean, I once had surgery, and before you go in, you sign lots of things, and they go, well, you're going to have an epidural, which means that we might sever your spine and you won't be able to walk, but you're going to have to just say that's fine. So you sign it. But when you wake up and you're looking under the sheets and looking what happened, and you're thinking, God, I might have. God, please don't say I'm going to be, my legs are still. And it's like, yes, the legs are working.
Yeah.
It seems. I mean, it's just like you do that checklist, don't you?
I just thought, if I really am in a wheelchair dribbling, it's over. It's not worth being around,
No, I know.
It took about 6 months to get over it. It was tough. And I actually didn't really know what to do with myself. And my stepson said, all through college, you told me how lucky I was. He said, why don't you go to university? I said, yeah, maybe I will. I think I'm going to write a book. And he said, you should. You have so many stories. And I said, no, I don't want to write a tell-all stuff. They're horrible. They're really, I hate those books. But I said, I'm going to use a lot of those stories with a character. And so I went to university. It was great being in your 50s at university.
Yes.
You know, it's nice to be around all that energy of very young kids, for one. But, I've been reading philosophy and Tolstoy and all this stuff for years, And the professor, and I took creative writing, and the professor said, you really don't have to do Shakespeare. If you went to an English boarding school, you probably know as well as who's ever going to teach it. So I kind of picked my own curriculum.
Yes.
And I came up with this character. I'd read this story about this woman that named 3 of her children during the war after the serviceman she'd had the baby with it from the base they were at. So they had names like, Liverpool Jones and things. So I thought, I'm making up all these names, looking at the map and making up these names and going to America and, finding great names. And then I thought, she has the 6th kid, and I was like, Charlie 6. And the character came to me, and I wrote the book, and it did pretty good. Now we've moved the same character to early 20 whiz kid in the music business, and I just got a deal with Federal Films, which is amazing.
Yes. God, that is.
It's a rock and roll crime story.
Yes.
With it's rock and roll and crime, really, set in the early 70s. So fingers crossed.
Well, absolutely. So with the post-operation, then you go to university, sort of 3 years of study, and then do you start just kind of, is your life mostly to do with sort of learning to write and sort of recovering from your,
Yeah, I just sort of a lot of mucking around, really, a lot of sort of nothing. And then I had a real bad period with drugs, and my whole life really went to shit. And then at the sort of end of school, as they call it in America, back at school, I bumped into my current girlfriend, who still lives in San Francisco. I'm living here. I can't wait to see her soon, actually.
yes.
So we sort of set up a small publishing company. We worked on editing and editing and editing, because writing's not really writing, it's editing. It's easy to write, I could write all day long. It's making it work is the hard part.
Yes. Did you find your voice within these, writing Charlie 6? Did that take a lot of work?
A lot of work. People seem to really like my voice. I'm just about, the novel did pretty good. I mean, for considering we really didn't know what we were doing, and we did a few things that, I advise anyone never to do, real bad mistakes. But, you learn, and that's the only way you learn, I think.
Yes. What was your sort of, when you say bad mistakes, which was the most obvious mistake that you made?
I should have got a local promo person and just promoted it in San Francisco to LA to Seattle, down the West Coast. And instead I got a national promo company, and it was so scattershot that I should have used the Chris Isaak theory, residency.
Right, yes.
And basically, but now I just was thinking, I'm going to start approaching agents here, because it's a great book. It's timeless. It's about a kid growing up in a gangster family who loves music, who's at a horrid boarding school, a coming of age story. But it's funny as hell, man. It's a great voice. It's a great character.
Yes.
So I'm just sort of beginning to write letters, and I have
So
to
have you
learn.
done 1 or 2 books now?
Just the one, and I'm going to write the TV. The streamer series is called "There Ain't No God Here," and I thought I'd take the script and write that into a book. So if the worst comes to the worst, we don't get further funding. And then I have a book that I'll be able to get funding from the streamer.
Yes.
I'm just thinking ahead. And then I have another really good gangster story, pre-war story. That's It's in all bits and pieces. It's sort of, I've written it as a script because scripts are very easy to write. I discovered they're a bit like poetry.
Right.
Because you don't have to describe characters, you don't have to describe scenes because you see them. So I'm sort of writing that as a as a script, and then I can take the script and I turn that into a novel. It's like a good work. I can't write notes. I'm hopeless. You know how people plan novels?
Yes.
I can't do that. I start planning, and the next thing I'm writing.
Yes.
I
And have
never
you
could.
And have you thought of writing for the theatre? Because I just say that because last week we went down to the Duke of York Theatre in London to see this new play called Stereophonic, which was written about a band, fictional band, though it's basically Fleetwood Mac, really. And they're in the studio recording their second album in 1973 or 74. And it's this kind of, the stage is set with the mixing board, so you're looking at the producer, engineer, and the band are behind the glass case behind that on the stage. And it's just quite an interesting thing. I just thought with your writing and all your stories, I just wondered if theatre would also be something that you would be quite tempted by.
I'm not very good with theatre. I only, I could count the times I've been to the theatre on my fingers and toes, I think. I like film, although, it's funny, people bring up television programs. When at boarding school, we weren't allowed television. We weren't allowed to watch it. We had a film on Saturday nights, an old film. They were great because they would all be spliced together, and the projector would break, and then you would see these psychedelic bubbles on the screen. It was fantastic stuff. And we were allowed to watch one television program, and of course the girls won, and that was the Monkeys.
Excellent.
And then my mum hated television. Didn't she? It's not she hated it. She was always out. When I was 8 years old, I'd get notes from my mum saying, "Oh, wait up for me tonight. Love to chat." She'd get home at 2 a.m. I'd be just waiting up for her. I was always a late night person.
Yes.
As a kid. It was the biggest shock of my life when someone woke me up and said, "You have to get up. You have to go to school." It's like, what? it's 7. You're kidding me.
Yes. And with Charlie Six, have you done? It's been published in America as well as Britain. Has it been published anywhere else around?
Yeah, I mean, with Amazon sort of all over the world, it's sold quite a lot in India, of all things. It's still available. Charlie Six by Brixton Key.
Yes.
It's still. We took it. We were advised by one of our attorneys. God, I sound like I'm important now. One of our attorneys. I was advised by one of our attorneys we should take it off the market. It was their idea, and they said, now you're getting a deal. It's the perfect time to resell the novel. So it's still available on Kindle.
Right.
I think it might even be free now. But it's actually, I mean, if I get a publishing deal, that's some nice quick money.
Yes. My God, it's quite something, actually. So that came out, was that 2011, the book came out?
I think so, yeah. Seems like 100 years ago now.
Did you? Yes, I can imagine, actually. And do you, and sort of looking at the next year ahead, what other sort of plans have you got?
Well, just well, mercenary here to make some money because I'm living in a real shithole right now. I feel like I'm 15 again, which is really nice, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, I have. Uh, uh, Hopefully, we can sell There Ain't No God Here, and that'd be good money. But also, I'd like to get Charlie Six republished with a real publishing house. You know, I'd like to finish up the novel. I'm in this weird stage right now where I've worn out my left knee.
Right, yes. This is,
I was always very active, and during the drug period, I only went to bed like a couple of times a week. During the 60s, 70s, I never bothered going to bed. It seemed like a waste.
yes.
One had things to
Things
stimulate.
that do people to meet.
And I really, from sports and playing soccer and always on the run, I still, even though my knee, I can't tell you how much it hurts because it's bone on bone. I'm having surgery, I hope, in the next 6 weeks.
Right. Have you got an appointment for the operation?
No, it's driving me mad. I'm talking to my doctor tomorrow. She's going to put a lot of pressure on the National Health Service. She's very good at getting things accomplished, and she's beginning to get pissed off. She's like, "Mum, a lion." I love my doctor. She's super. So hopefully she'd get everything moving a little bit faster.
Yes.
I still go down. I still can't stand on an escalator. It's like, it drives me nuts. I still walk down. I mean, even like Tottenham Court Road, it's like, whoa, that's a hell of a lot of stairs, man. I still
Yes.
walk up them,
Well,
People look
I just always think,
looking at me like my walking stick is like what do you call it, like a piece of clothing, something to make me look cool because I'm walking down holding my walking stick, holding the banister. Oh, it's funny.
yes, God, well, yes, health, I realise health is such a critical thing, actually, when things start dropping off or failing to function properly.
Thank God we live today, though. I mean, now it's like chop my knee out, just stick a titanium one in. It's a week of terrible pain, another week of quite a lot of pain, and then 3 weeks later you're walking again. 6 weeks, the doctor told me 6 weeks you could get on a plane to America. You could walk to the West End again from home.
God, that would be a relief, actually.
Yeah.
And if you kicked all your sort of drug habits and bits and pieces, is that sort of under control now?
Yes, I've even stopped really drinking. If I go out, I go to the Royal Exchange and Trisha's and places, pubs and bars. But I really only drink like a pint and a half now because I have to take so many fucking painkillers that they really don't go together.
No.
I smoke pot still. I mean, everyone smokes pot. There's nothing wrong with that. But no, hard drugs are just, they don't, they're not fascinating. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well,
And
it's
they're
a,
expensive.
yes, I could imagine. And did you say you still got people in America or did you say you got a relationship with someone in America?
Yeah, I have. I mean, basically, I suppose one would say my best friend, my partner. We had a little bit of a bust up, but I'm sort of sure we're going back together again. I just needed to be in England. I was coming back to England for a month, 3 months, 2 months. And the more I was here, the more I was like dreading going back to America. It's such a drag, America now. It used to be when I was, younger, you go to America and it was like, getting to New York, it was like plugging your fingers into the electricity. It was happening. And you come back to England, I mean, no wonder there's punk rock. It's like a miserable place, man. And now you go to America and it's like, I don't know, it's like going to England in 1976,
Right, it's grim.
It's grim and it's expensive as all hell, America.
Yes.
I know London's very expensive, but my friends here sort of laugh at me when I say it's so inexpensive here. It just is, I tease my girlfriend sometimes. I send her, like if I'm in Lidl, where you get, smoked salmon for like next to nothing and things. I take little pictures and I send like treats, things she really loves.
Yes.
It's like big piece of smoked salmon, £3, where it's like 15, it would be $15. Like,
Yes, it's quite a shock actually. And then you get taxed when you go to the checkout and you think, oh, crikey, if you're not careful, But then I had a friend who just went to Switzerland and she said, my God, that is expensive as well. That is really
Switzerland always was.
it's yeah, you just come back to England and think, God, I'm not going to moan anymore about the price of anything. So
And London is expensive. I was talking to a guy in the Blue Post a little while ago. He ran a club up north somewhere. And he was telling me if I charged these prices in my club for a beer, no one would ever come. It didn't matter who I put on, they wouldn't come,
Yes, that's always...
And he was telling me when I visit Wigan, I think it was Wigan, he said, when I visit my dad in Wigan, it's like $2.50 a pint.
God, that's like the 1980s.
Yeah. I was like, wow, actually, I think it was $3.50. I think I'm exaggerating, but it was like, you're shitting me. It was, whoa, God,
Amazing. And did you just almost lastly, did you ever meet Lemmy on your travels around London and LA? Was he ever on your radar?
I met Lemmy quite a few times, and oh God, I cannot remember the name of the club just off of Sunset in Los Angeles, and I was in there every night forever.
Was that where he would hang out and play?
Yeah, where all the English bands used to hang out. And I just can't, not being an IMS, I can't remember the name of the club. It's terrible. We go off into a car park. It's just not there. But yeah, I met Lemmy there. He was always a great character.
Yes, I could imagine. Great. Was it the Rainbow Bar and Grill?
That's it, the Rainbow. Yeah. That was like a haunt, And
yes.
I think I'd met Lemmy when he was with Hawkwind. I interviewed Hawkwind a few times. I always liked Hawkwind, actually. I thought they were fun.
Yes. Dave Brock, Robert Calvert. Yes.
I think Lemmy sort of was more in America about the same time that I was in America.
Yes, he did quite an interesting sort of relocation, really. And
I don't know when he moved there, but I think he was playing there a lot more than here. There's more money.
Well, yes, absolutely. And nicer weather, I guess, I suppose. Yeah, it's quite an interesting move, actually. But look, thank you ever so much. This has been amazing. And it's such a fascinating life. So, yes. So if you want, I can always give you a link to the interview show. And then you can always...
Please, yeah.
You can always use it on your social media platform sites. I think you've got a very good website, actually, haven't you? So, but yes.
My wife said, my girlfriend said, make sure you get a copy. And
yes, well, I will. I'll send you a copy, and then you can put it wherever you want. And well, look, thank you.
Let me know when it's coming out.
I should be very soon, otherwise it gets
Facebook it.
lost in the time, really. The wibbly wobbly time warp. So yes, well look, thank you, and I hope it all goes well with your knee. Actually, I know these things are they don't sound much for someone else, but when you have some issue, it's the only thing you can think about. So yes, I hope that goes well. But look, thank you for your time.
My girlfriend had 2 new hips, and it was amazing, man. She was out of bed the second she came back from anesthesia. She was up walking. And 2 days later, we were walking to the store slowly and carefully as she was walking to the store. So it's modern science it's amazing.
Yeah, they can do things.
It's only it's a pretty simple thing. And I heard the shoulders are worse. I know Joe Montana, the great 49ers quarterback, and Joe has 2 new knees, 2 new hips, and a shoulder. And he said, the hips are simple, the knees a bit harder. But he said, oh man, the shoulder was, even for a guy that's, used to being hurt and very good, obviously, an athlete at following through with all the exercises. He said, oh man, never have your shoulder done.
Right, yes.
And he's like, all the exercises they give you, do them faithfully. And I'm like, I'll pretend I'm you, Joe. He goes, yeah.
Yes, I know. It always seems a bit like, I'm sure that won't make any difference, but yes, just a bit.
I had the same back surgery he had, and it took me about 3 months to get really back on. I had a slip disc, and he had that same surgery, and he was playing 3 weeks later. It's like, oh, I can't imagine being hit as a quarterback after that back surgery.
Yes, I would be very tentative and upset if anybody even
on the sidelines, because I used to be on the sidelines for 49ers games. A friend of mine works for them, and that was, you had to have your wits about you on the sidelines because guys are pummeling off.
Yes, God, that must have been amazing being that close to the action, actually.
Yeah. All those guys, when the 49ers were winning everything, with Joe Montana and Steve Young, they all loved Chris Isaak because of all the pretty girls.
Yes.
So we got to know them really well, when one of them, one of the cornerbacks, he used to tell me, you've got to be my bodyguard. He had a horrendous injury. He'd broken a bone right up in the crotch area. There's no way it could be mended. It was a tiny bone. He said, man, I can't even fornicate. It hurts so much. I was like, no wonder you're so vicious on the field. But he used to say to me, you've got to protect me. Don't let anyone put an arm around me, because you know how people come up, they see him, and they say, Eric, I'd be like, no, can't touch him. I was up in my head up, there's this guy that could pick me up with his little fingers and tear me into pieces, and I'm his bodyguard when we're out.
That's quite sweet, really. It's kind of reverse roles, really.
It was very funny.
You must have looked like an odd couple, actually.
Yeah, well, he's thin as me. Just arms like this, but thin guy.
Yeah.
Really thin, and tall, and vicious.
Blimey, the 49ers. Anyway, yes, well, look, thank you ever so much. Have a great evening. And also, yes, I'll keep in touch, but I'll take care. Yes, take care of yourself. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was fun. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. A massive thank you to Brixton for giving me the time for that. This has been the C86 Show. If you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show and my name. And all these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. It's true. Have a great week. Stay safe.